Happy Monday! Today we're talking about some great reasons to refresh your LinkedIn profile and also how to give your profile a glow up for the new year so that you can land that next opportunity as an expert. So, more on that in a minute. How was your weekend? I took some time to gear up for a few university classes I'm taking this semester. And after a semester off, I'm looking forward to diving back into academics, learning, research, all that good stuff. As a self-confessed learnaholic, it's really fun to apply like what I'm learning on the academic side to business and relationship building because I'm studying psychology and all that entails, and it's a lot of fun. So now it is time for Mondays with Mindy. It's a weekly show at 12 p.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, where I talk about all things LinkedIn, pipeline, promo, and profiles, what I call the three P's of LinkedIn. Do you have questions about LinkedIn that you want me to answer? If you do, be sure to like this post whether you're watching live or from the replay. Leave your questions below and I will either answer them after the show or on a future episode of Mondays with Mindy, especially if it's a topic that I want to dive deeper into. I might say, hey, that's a great topic. Let's talk about that in a future episode. So let's get to today's topic. What are some really great reasons to refresh your LinkedIn profile and how do you actually go about giving it a glow up? Like when you're looking at your profile, what section should you be looking at? And what do what are you thinking about when you're looking at the sections? What are some best practices? I'm actually going to be screen sharing a little bit later, so we'll talk about reasons to update, which will help you kind of get in the mindset like, okay, now is a good time. And then we will get into, I will share my screen with my profile and kind of take you through and show you the different sections that I think are most important. There are a lot of sections on the profile, but it will be tactical and it will be helpful, especially if you're like, I need to do this. I just need to sit down. You can come back to this recording if you want and kind of skip through to the parts that you need. So, if you followed me for any time at all, you've probably heard me say it all starts with your LinkedIn profile. And honestly, that is the truth. So many people try to tackle LinkedIn from all sorts of angles, thinking it works like other social platforms. So, just post a lot, hope it sticks, try to go viral. The problem is that that's not how LinkedIn works. So, Instagram, TikTok, for however long we have it, I'm looking at you on Instagram or TikTok or other platforms. People don't typically check out your bio first, but on LinkedIn, they absolutely do. So, they're going to look up your profile. They're likely not going to see their content unless they've looked at your profile and connected with you or followed you. So, before someone engages with your content, they're probably Googling you or getting a referral to check out your profile. So, your headline, your profile picture, your header, these are what form your first impression. And so, really think hard about like what people see initially and then the other sections too to back it up. So, the kicker here, many people won't even bother with your post until they've vetted your profile to see if your content is worth their time, to see if you're legit. Do you actually have the credentials? Are you who you say you are? So you really want to take a second to think about that because you can be doing the greatest marketing. You could have a great lead generation program, but if your profile is not dialed in, it's going to fall flat. So if you've been spending all of your time sending connection requests, creating content, researching prospects, but you haven't optimized your profile, okay, that's probably the issue that you may be having if you feel stuck on LinkedIn. So the most successful people on LinkedIn aren't necessarily the loudest, even though they'd like us to think they are, or the ones with the viral post. They're actually the ones with a profile that attracts the right people. So you often won't see tons of messages and invites and you don't see what's going on behind the scenes for these people because obviously it happens in the background. It happens behind the scenes. So you're not going to really know. The people that we see, the people that seem to be doing LinkedIn well, are the really noisy, loud people, often kind of obnoxious. So the real power of LinkedIn, it's about networking. It's about the people. It's not just about becoming an influencer, getting popular, accumulating followers, getting lots of comments, lots of shares. So let's dive into why it is time for a profile update, when to refresh it, and how to make the most of it to attract more opportunities and nurture your professional relationships. And for those of you who don't know me, hello, my name is Mindy Ramsey, and I have an online program called the LinkedIn Accelerator for those who want to go from 0 to 60 on LinkedIn with their profile and their network. The last cohort ran in 2023. Wow, that was like not quite 2 years ago. And I am revamping it, the next program that will have tons of updates that have happened since then. So a lot has changed. I help leaders who feel they are the best kept secret in their industry to become seen as that go to visible expert in their niche so they can get that next opportunity, grow their business, and scale their impact. And in this live, we're diving into the nitty gritty of when to update your profile and how to give it a bit of a glow up for the new year. So let's go. Let's do this together. It should be a lot of fun. Go ahead and like this post, whether you're live or watching from the replay, to give it some social love. Every little bit helps. All right. So, when should you update your profile? One of the biggest misconceptions about updating your LinkedIn profile is thinking it's only necessary to do when you are actively job hunting or you are prospecting or you're pursuing board opportunities, like when you have a real objective that you're headed towards. Yes, those are great reasons. Yes, those are good reasons to update your profile, but they're not the only reasons. And I think that's where sometimes we get caught behind the eight ball per se because we're thinking, oh, I don't need to do that now. I have a job I'm happy with, or everything is fine. I'll deal with my profile later. If you want to consistently attract the right opportunities, have your profile ready for when you are ready to make a move. Things happen unexpectedly. We all know this. Things are unpredictable. So, what you want to do is like LinkedIn is like your insurance policy. It's like when you need it, you're going to want it to be there and you're going to want it to be ready. So, the key here is to always be ready. Always be ready and build meaningful relationships on LinkedIn. So, the best time to update your profile is always now. All right. So if it has been more than 6 months, that's kind of like the guideline that I like to tell people 6 months. Some people like to update every 3 to 4 months. That's fine. Some people update more frequently than that, but then you're kind of getting into obsessive territory. So I think every 3 to 6 months, 6 months. Since you last reviewed your profile, it's overdue for a refresh. You really want to pay attention and say, okay, it's time to do it. Put it on your calendar. I have to do that because otherwise I forget and I'm like, oh yeah, I should update that section or my featured section looks really out of date. So it's really easy for things to kind of, they fall off our to-do list. So just add them back. Put it as a recurring task. You don't have to spend a ton of time too. If you want to bookmark this video and come back to it every time you're doing your, 6 month review, great. Watch the last half of this live stream and boom, you're set. So LinkedIn operates on the expectation that professionals keep their profiles up to date, reflecting recent accomplishments, shift in their focus, career changes. It's almost like an unwritten rule of the platform. Like LinkedIn expects you to have this updated at all times. It should always currently reflect where you are professionally. So let's flip the script. Updating your profile isn't something you rush to do when you're scrambling for new opportunity. This is usually when people come to me like, I need a new job, or I really want to apply for this opportunity, but my profile is out of date. And then they feel rushed and it's, trying to scramble and you just aren't able to get that zoomed out look, that unbiased perspective and time to kind of like sink into it. So if you have time available, sometimes we don't, sometimes it is a rush, sometimes we just have to do it. But if you have time to zoom out and if it's always on your calendar, every 6 months, I look at my profile, spend 30 minutes, doesn't have to be long, just updating certain sections, you're not going to feel like you're in a pinch. So it's something you should do anytime if you have something else, like for example, 3 months after you update your profile, you have a new job or something, then obviously update your profile then, but at least every 6 months. So your LinkedIn profile should be the first place you make updates when something significant happens. It's the first thing like, oh, update profile, update resume. So then everything is up to date and, kind of kept in sync. So when people do ask you for either of those document or the LinkedIn profile is not a document, they ask you for your resume and they look you up on LinkedIn, it's up to date. So it's a personal decision, but there are 3 key scenarios where a refresh can make a huge difference. Like what I just mentioned, number one, pivoting your career or business. So if you are in the middle of figuring out what you're going to do next, if you recently decided to take your career in a new direction, or you have started a pivot, this is the perfect time to update your profile while you're doing that deep work because you are doing a lot of thinking. You're thinking about positioning, all of this stuff is really fresh and top of mind. So make sure if you are doing that, like if you're working on a website, make sure you're working on your profile right alongside that, so things can kind of do double duty. And if you're working on your resume, work on your profile as well. So your excitement and clarity about your new path, they're fresh, they're top of mind. This is a perfect time to update. Use that momentum to craft a profile that reflects where you're headed. And that's the mistake a lot of people make too, is they think about, okay, I just need to focus on the past, what I've done. Yes. And people need to know, what are you doing with that past and where are you going next? So make sure that that is also a theme and a part of your profile. Make it clear how you are going to help the next group of people, or where you're going, where you are headed for on that corporate ladder, if that's where you're at, the types of prospects or people you want to work with. Make sure that that's clear on your profile. Okay. Number two, if it's been a while. All right. So if it's been a while, like I said, if it's been more than 6 months, or you're brand new, or you're just like, I had a profile and didn't think I needed it. Now I do. So if your LinkedIn profile has been sitting untouched for a long time, or you're brand new to the platform, now is the time to refresh it and give it, a once over. And maybe you've been focused on other social channels, or you haven't felt the need to use LinkedIn actively, but it's really smart to have an up to date profile ready for when opportunities come your way. Even if LinkedIn is not your main hub, depending on the type of business that you have, I would say for most careers, if you're, a corporate professional, kind of have to have LinkedIn and people are going to see it. But if maybe you are, in B2C marketing or something, and you are just, you're focused on a different demographic, maybe Facebook and Instagram are your channels, your main channels. And then, LinkedIn still needs to be there. So make sure that you aren't neglecting LinkedIn, even if it's not your primary channel. All right, number three, if you are looking to grow your network or generate leads. All right, so you're looking to expand your network and meet others. If you're using LinkedIn to grow your connections, or do lead generation or prospecting, having an optimized profile, it's a non-negotiable. Like, it has to be dialed. Your profile is the first thing people are going to check before they connect with you or respond to your outreach. So you may have, a great connection invitation. You may have LinkedIn Premium. You may be sending LinkedIn emails. But if your profile sucks, people aren't going to accept. They're going to think you're spammy. They're going to think you're like fly by night. They're just not going to connect with you. So if your profile also is not aligned with your messaging, and I've seen a lot of mismatch on this, it can work against you. Like, in a bad way, where people are just like, oh. And if they're annoyed, so if you send somebody a connection invitation, they look at your profile, it's like, yuck. What they can do is they can actually click that they don't know you on that connection invitation, which is reported to LinkedIn, and LinkedIn starts flagging your profile. And it's like you're kind of like on a watch list. So you don't want that to happen. Okay. So make sure that if you are sending connection invitations to people you don't know, that your profile is dialed in, that people understand why you're connecting with them. Your messaging is aligned with that if you're sending connections with a message attached. So your profile is key to this. So before you hit connect or send a message, make sure your profile tells a cohesive story about who you are and what you offer, so people know these things. Like, it's irrefutable. It's like they come to your profile, okay, this is what you do, and then they can decide to connect or not. So your LinkedIn profile is your first impression, and as I mentioned, it sets the tone for every interaction you are going to have with a potential connection, a hiring manager, a board member, a peer in your industry. The details on your profile matter more than you might think. All right, so don't overlook them. So picture the last time that you came across someone through a referral, maybe a podcast appearance, maybe a mention from someone that you trust. What's the first thing that you do? You look them up, right? We do our homework. We're like, okay, who is this person? All right, yeah, okay, they have an interesting background, and we check them out, right? So when you land on their LinkedIn profile, you expect to find current information, a cohesive personal brand, attention to detail. But what happens when their profile is obviously outdated? Their links are broken, or their work history, you can tell it hasn't been updated in years. Like, your friend said, oh, they're doing this, and you're like, oh, it looks like they're still at that company from like 5 years ago. So immediately doubt starts to creep in, and you just don't trust them, right? You start like, eh. do they really pay attention to what they do? Are they you just have that little bit of doubt. So do they take their personal brand seriously? If they overlook this, what else are they neglecting? So these questions start to pop up in your mind. And so the same thing happens when people come to your profile if it's a little bit out of date. So whether we admit it or not, first impressions stick. And research shows us that they form in as little as 1/10 of a second. I find that hard to believe, but 1/10 of a second to just a few seconds. So somewhere in there, depending on which research you're looking at. And that's not much time to make an impact, right? That's why your profile matters and it needs to be visually cohesive. So for LinkedIn experts, every detail of their profile is intentional because they understand how crucial that first impression is to their success. All right, so if you're an expert, you're on LinkedIn, you pay attention to your profile. No matter where you are in your career, no matter if you just landed the greatest job, whether you're looking for a job, whether you're looking for clients or you're full of clients, your profile is dialed. So here's the good news. Once you put in the work to optimize your profile, especially that first time or two, maintaining it doesn't require much effort. So let's actually go through the LinkedIn profile and talk about each section, the major sections. We're not going to go into every single bazillion section. And I'll talk about looking at my profile. We'll talk about certain things and I'll tell you where I'm doing okay and where I can improve too. So, all right, let me share my screen. All right, so you should be able to see my profile. Let me scroll to the top. All right, so when you are looking at your profile and you're thinking, what do I fix? The first part people are going to see is what's at the top. All right, so think about your header, which is this area here, that image. It's me in a group photo at university. We're working on a research project, which this is really fun because it shows me with real people in action. And yes, I am currently attending university. So this to me feels in alignment. It also shows me with real people. So if you have a group photo of doing cool things in real life, use it. It's great. I think if I was really trying to focus very heavily on, like attracting new leads, or I had a lead magnet, or I was doing like a launch or something like that, I would change this out and make it a little more CTA focused, so call to action focused. But for right now, this feels good to me. So that's what is there. A lot of different ways that you can handle your header area. So by putting a group photo, you speaking, if you're a thought leader speaker, make sure you have like some type of image or something that speaks to that. You could also use, again, more of a call to action focus. You could use graphics, you could use marketing and branding with your logo. You can use like an image, like a skyline image. If you don't have time to create something there, you don't have anything, make sure something is there. All right. Then you want to look at your profile photo. I want to update mine because you can see here in my profile photo, my hair looks a little bit different. So if you're watching this live, you're like, Mindy, your dreadlocks look a little bit different, a little more mature. So I need to update that photo. So that's something that it's like on my list, like, okay, I need to get a new photo. And I don't like taking them either. I don't really know a lot of people who really enjoy getting them done. But it's something that you need to update I would say every, 2, 3 years, thereabouts, just depending on if you change your look more frequently. Maybe you want to do it more frequently than that. But for me, it's been 2 years since have taken mine, 2.5 years. So I need to update mine. Then looking here at your name area, make sure that that is accurate, up to date. Because I have recently changed my name, I have my former name in the middle. So that's easy to do, but make sure it's up to date. And if you have gotten married or relationships, or you just changed your name, make sure that your whatever other name you have used in the last few years is there, because people are going to search for you and LinkedIn optimizes search and your name by this section. Okay, so you don't want to confuse people. That's why I made sure to have my former name in there as well. Then you're going to want to think about your headline. Section is very, very important. I'm not going to go too much in depth here, but you want to talk about who you are, who you help, how you help them, and the results that you generate. So you can see who I am, social strategist. Who do I help? Organizations, and I help experts. How do I help them? I help them with growing their networks and optimizing their LinkedIn profiles. And again, that kind of ties into the results that I generate. I also am on board of advisors, so I did list that as well. And sometimes you may have a couple of other things that are secondary or other things you want to list there, and you can list them at the end. Okay, so it's relatively short. I'm not using all of the characters, 2 lines. If you're looking at it on mobile, it looks a little bit longer. All right, then you can also see I'm open to volunteer for these causes. That's great. People aren't going to see your analytics here. That's private to you. Same with your resources. So let's scan a little bit further down. About section. All right. There's a lot we could talk about here. I think I have done full live streams on the about section. If I haven't, it's on my list because I want to dive more deeply into this for those of you who really want to write a good section. So with your about section, you want it to be a little bit of how you got from there, so where you started from, to here. People want to know a little bit more about your journey. They also want to know about what you stand for and who you're helping. So for me, I'm a marketer, right? So how I'm positioning myself on LinkedIn is like, let's have great conversations. That's why we're here. So like, oh, you're here to have conversations. You're not just here to sell me something. Okay. So I want to set myself apart a little bit in that way. And then these are like kind of addressing the problems. So problems that people I work with are facing. Then it's like LinkedIn is not as complicated because for me, it's all about making LinkedIn more simple for people. And then a little bit more about my background, who I worked with. So this is just kind of giving people like, okay, do I work with people like you? If somebody lands on my profile, yes, I work with you, or no, not exactly. And then I'm passionate about this. And then a let's connect section. And I did not write this with AI. So this is something that I actually came up with. When I'm working with clients, I use AI. So, and I know a lot of other people do. I thought about using it to rewrite my profile, but I really like the tone. So you can use AI. You don't have to use AI. It can help you if you feel like you're stuck. The problem is sometimes you lose your voice, especially if you have a really good, unique voice. It's just not quite there that I found. I know there are great tools out there, and some people are very sophisticated with how they use them. But I, I just like the feeling of coming to my profile and it's like, this is written by me, like the actual me, so do what you want here, but it's better to use AI and have an about section that's a little bit longer than to not use it and have like a really short section because you don't know what to write. All right. Take that with a grain of salt. We'll talk a little bit more in depth about that in a week or two because we're going to talk about using AI for your profile. So stay tuned. All right. Then you want to have your top skills here. That's important. Services, because I offer services, I do have this section. If you are a job seeker, you're not going to have this section. But make sure that you fill it out. I think it's important if you are a freelancer, if you're a contractor, if you're looking for work, and you do some gigs on the side. It's good to have it here. If you are a careerist, like you have a main job and you do side work, be careful about having a services section just because you don't want, if there could be a conflict of interest with your employer, that could be problematic. So keep that in mind. All right, featured section, very, very important. I love the featured section. Make sure you have something here. So whether you're using different posts, I think I talked about this last week, but if you're using certain posts and such, list those here, PDFs, lots of other things. I'm not going to go too far in depth, but you should have at least 2 to 3 things in your featured section. Everyone should. All right. So I used to say, well, certain people shouldn't. Just about everyone should. All right. So then you go to your activity section. You can actually choose what you want to show up here. I have my newsletter showing up here, but it defaults to posts. So you can also see posts here. You can change it just by clicking this little pencil icon. I prefer to have the newsletter so then it looks similar to what's up here, but also a little bit different. And it lets people know that I publish regular content. All right, your experience section is very, very important. So when you are thinking in terms of your experience section, make sure that you have all of your different roles listed. I'm not going to go too far in depth. Make sure they're all up to date. You can reorganize anything that is current. So if there's like a current experience to present, you can move it around. Otherwise, it's going to default by, your most current to the least current. All right. We're not going to go too far in depth again. We'll talk about that in a future episode, but make sure this is up to date. Short, high-level overviews for each of these sections. Do not use bullet points. It looks like you copied from a resume. All right. So scrolling down education, make sure this is up to date. And you can see mine is here. So you can see where I'm taking classes and what I have done in the past. Then you can see projects. Projects, most people don't have a lot for projects. Some people do. So if there are projects you want to call out here, you can do that. Volunteering, I think everybody should have a volunteer section. So if you're thinking, oh, do I need this? Is this relevant? Ideally stuff that is related to your professional work. But you can list stuff like if you're on the PTO, if you do stuff at your church or another civic organization, you can list that here too. So anything that it shows that you care about your community, whatever that community may look like, that's helpful. Thankfully, and what I like about mine, a lot of it ties into what I do professionally, so it just kind of reinforces what I have done and also just where I'm involved. Okay. So then looking at skills, it's important to use your skills. So you can have up to 100. I don't have all 100 listed here. I have 54. Ideally, at least 50. But LinkedIn has increased this so you can add more keywords to your profile. Put the two that you think are the most important at the top. I'm going to revisit this section. Advisory boards, I was looking at, kind of getting on more of those. So I had that at the top, but I'm probably going to switch this around a little bit just based on my current goals and availability. Then you want your recommendations. Make sure that you have some. If you don't have any, ask for some. I'm not going to go too far in depth into that today, but it feels uncomfortable to ask for them. But do it, and make sure that you're also giving recommendations too. It's important to give recommendations as well. So ask for recommendations. If people say, "Hey, I'd write it, but I don't know exactly what you want me to say," help them out a little bit. That really helps you establish credibility. It's nice to have one, maybe two of these every year. So you can see I got one in 2024 and one in 2023. Great. That's fantastic. I'm super happy with that. Then going down to publications, if you have any of these, make sure to add them here so you can see written something last year about getting into medical school. And there's also some stuff for my blog and newsletter here as well. Honors and awards, list those here. Mine are not that spectacular. I end up on lists sometimes and great, but I'm not actively trying to get different honors and awards. But if you have them, add them. Languages, it's okay. You can list what you have. If you are multilingual, list that here. It can be helpful. Interest, people don't really go through those as much. All right. So those are the main sections that we want to talk about. And you can see it's not incredibly overwhelming to go through your profile and actually just update certain sections. All you need to do is focus on the main section. So start with the top and just work your way down. The about section is the one where people really find the most difficulty because they're trying to position themselves accordingly. There are also some other areas, like we didn't go into contact info and other things. There are some other things that you can fix on your profile, but if you focus on what we talked about today, just make that into a checklist. Like, okay, I'm going to sit with Mindy through this. She's talking through the different sections to update, and boom, 15, 30 minutes, you can update those sections and it doesn't feel like a heavy lift. And that's the key with LinkedIn. It shouldn't feel like a heavy lift. This is just about keeping things fresh and remembering, like, oh, yeah, I did that really neat project. I should add that. Oh, I won that award, or I brought on that new client, or, I achieved this really cool benchmark or statistic that I can add to my profile that just shows I know what I'm talking about. All of those things add up and they matter and they keep your profile fresh. All right, so we covered a lot today. The reasons when to update your profile if it's been more than 6 months or you're in any type of transition, pivot, want to get more leads, you're new to LinkedIn or haven't touched it in a while, good times to update. And then we went through the profile and talked about all the different sections to update and what matters and kind of how often to review some of those sections as well. So if you're ready to get started with LinkedIn and take that next step to optimize your profile once and for all, if you need help, let me know. I hop on like 60-minute calls with people and we go through all the sections, they make the changes, I look at the changes and boom, they feel happy. It's like, okay, now I know what to do on LinkedIn. So 1 hour we can kind of knock it out together. Some people like to have that because then we can talk about specifics, talk about profiles, we can look at your resume and kind of tie that all into your profile. So if that sounds interesting, let me know. You can message me about that. It's affordable, so if you're worried about price, it's not crazy. And if you just want to hop on my email newsletter, you can hop over to mindyramsey.com and get on my newsletter over there. I send out a weekly email and it's usually related to these live streams and any other exciting things I'm doing at the moment. So until next week, I will see you all. If you have questions, let me know. And if you decide to kind of take me up on the challenge of refreshing your profile, even if you just want to choose one section, just put it in the comments and say, Mindy, I'm going to update this one section. Hold me to it. and I will check in with you. So if you want to take me up on that, either message me or leave a comment below, and that would be really fun. So I will see you all next week. Have a beautiful rest of your week, and bye for now.